The twin suns burned low over the vast spaceport of Carson 5. Ships came and went, engines roaring, steam hissing, voices shouting in hundreds of alien tongues. Traders argued over prices, guards pushed through crowds, and everyone hurried somewhere. But near the corner of Dock C7, no one noticed the small, old alien woman sitting beside a crate. Her robe was torn and dusty, her hands shaking as she tried to lift a small metal case. The crowds walked past her without a single glance. Some even stepped around her as if she were invisible. She tried to speak to a passing merchant, her voice soft and tired. He turned his head away, pretending not to hear. A group of young aliens laughed at her when she dropped her case. The little box slid across the metal floor and stopped near a human boy's boots. The boy's name was Eli, a 16-year-old worker who spent his days unloading cargo from freighters. He had been finishing his shift, wiping sweat from his face when the small box bumped against his foot. He looked down. Inside the reflection of the metal, he saw the old alien woman's trembling hands. Something about her eyes, large silver, and filled with sadness, made him stop. "Hey, you dropped this," Eli said, kneeling and holding the box out to her. She looked up, startled that someone had actually spoken to her. You can see me?" she whispered. Her voice sounded cracked like wind blowing through old wood. "Of course I can," Eli said with a small smile. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" Her thin fingers reached for the box. "Help," she murmured as if the word felt strange to her tongue. Then she nodded slowly. "Yes, young one, I need help." Eli took her arm carefully. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. Her robe smelled faintly of strange spices and old metal. When she held the box close again, Eli noticed a faint golden glow seeping through its edges. "What's in there?" he asked. The old woman's lips trembled. "Memories," she said softly. "And danger." Before he could ask more, someone shouted in the distance. A pair of armored guards pushed through the crowd, scanning faces with glowing visors. The old woman's eyes widened in fear. "They found me," she whispered. "You must go." "What? Who found you?" Eli asked, confused. The air suddenly filled with the sound of alarms. The guards were moving faster now, pointing in their direction. The crowd began to panic. The old woman grabbed Eli's hand tightly. "It's too late," she said. "Now you are part of this." The small box in her hands pulsed with bright light. A wave of golden energy swept across the dock, flickering like a heartbeat. For a second everything froze. Then screens, drones, and scanners nearby went dark. The guards stumbled, shouting into dead comms. Eli stared at the box. "What did you do?" "I didn't," the old woman said. "You did." The golden light faded, leaving a strange silence. Even the air felt heavier. The old woman looked at him with new eyes, studying him almost in awe. "You have awakened it," she said slowly. "The light recognized you," Eli shook his head. "I don't understand." "You will," she said, struggling to stand. "But not here. They are coming." Blaster fire exploded near the far gate. The guards had brought reinforcements. Eli made a quick choice. "Come on, this way." He led her through a narrow maintenance tunnel behind the cargo stacks. The lights flickered as they ran. The old woman moved surprisingly fast for her age, clutching the glowing box tight against her chest. When they reached the end of the tunnel, they slipped into a dark alley that smelled of smoke and oil. Above them, ships lifted off one after another. Eli stopped to catch his breath. "Who are you?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "Once I was someone, now I am only Sarah." "Sarah," Eli repeated. "Why are they after you?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Because of what I carry, and because of who you are." Eli frowned. "Me? I'm nobody." Sarah smiled faintly. That's what every human said before the stars remembered them. A distant explosion shook the ground. Red lights flashed across the sky. Sarah reached out and touched his shoulder. "We must hurry. The Dominion will not stop." Eli glanced back at the chaos behind them, the soldiers, the fire, the shouting, and felt something strange stir inside him. He didn't know this woman. He didn't know what she carried. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't leave her behind, and in that single choice to help the one everyone ignored, Eli had already changed the fate of the galaxy. Sirens echoed through the metal, streets as the sound of engines roared above. Red lights painted the sky, flashing against the cold walls of the spaceport. Eli held Sarah's arm tightly as they ran through the narrow alley. Her breathing was rough, but her steps never slowed. Behind them, Dominion soldiers shouted orders. Drones hovered overhead, scanning with red beams of light. One beam passed over Eli's shoulder, burning a line on the wall beside him. He ducked, pulling Sarah into the shadows. "This way," he whispered, pointing to a broken cargo lift that led down into the city's lower decks. Sarah nodded, clutching the glowing box close. Together they slid down the old elevator shaft, landing on a pile of discarded metal. The smell of oil and smoke filled their lungs. The sounds of the search grew distant for a moment. Sarah leaned against a wall, her old robe torn even more. "You should not have stayed," she said softly. "Now you are marked too." Eli shook his head. "I couldn't just leave you there." Her silver eyes softened for a second, but then she looked up sharply. "Listen, footsteps." More soldiers. The Dominion wasn't giving up. Eli spotted an old maintenance tunnel nearby. Its sign read restricted access. He helped Sarah inside and they started walking fast through the dark tunnel. Pipes hissed overhead, and the walls were covered in strange writing, old warning symbols from before the Dominion took control. "Who are they?" Eli asked as they moved. "Why do they want you?" Sarah's voice was quiet but filled with sadness. "The Dominion fears what I protect. They fear what you just awakened." Eli frowned. "That light? It came from your box. What is it?" She looked down at the glowing metal case. The golden lines pulsed like a heartbeat. "This is part of something called the Atlas, the last memory of the humans who once ruled the stars. I carried it for many lifetimes, waiting for someone worthy to awaken it." Eli stopped walking. "Wait, humans ruled the stars? That's just old myths. Everyone says humans were wiped out hundreds of years ago." Sarah smiled faintly. "That's what the Dominion wants you to believe." Before Eli could answer, the tunnel suddenly lit up in red. A drone had found them. It fired a shot that exploded beside the wall, throwing sparks everywhere. Sarah raised her hand and a wave of golden light burst from her palm. The drone froze midair, its lights dying. It fell to the ground with a metallic thud. Eli stared at her in shock. "You can do that?" She turned her head slowly. "Only because of what you unlocked." He didn't understand, but he didn't have time to ask. "We need to keep moving," he said. "I know a place we can hide." They reached a ladder that led up to the junk district, a massive field of broken ships and rusted machines. Smoke drifted across the open air, and strange alien scavengers moved between the wrecks. No one would notice them here. Eli guided Sarah through the maze of metal until they reached a large, half-buried freighter. Its hull was marked with faded human letters. SS Horizon's call. Sarah stopped suddenly. Her hands trembled. This ship," she whispered. "It's human." Eli looked confused. "You can read that?" "I helped build ships like this," she said softly. "Long ago." They stepped inside through a cracked side hatch. The interior was dark, filled with dust and silence. Eli turned on his small flashlight, sweeping the beam across empty corridors. Strange symbols flickered faintly on the walls as they passed, glowing in response to Sarah's presence. At the heart of the freighter, they found a circular chamber with a control chair covered in dust. Sarah placed the metal box on the console. The ship suddenly hummed, power surging through its walls. Blue lights flickered alive one by one. Eli jumped back in surprise. "What did you do?" "The ship remembers," Sarah said. "It remembers you." "Me?" She nodded. "Only a human can wake a human ship." The console began to speak in a deep, calm voice. "Identification confirmed. Genetic pattern, Terran descent. Welcome, Commander." Eli's eyes widened. "It called me." "Commander?" Sarah smiled weakly. "Then the legends are true. Humanity still lives." Before he could speak, alarms blared again outside. The Dominion had tracked the energy surge. "Can this thing fly?" Eli shouted. "It will if you sit there," Sarah said, pointing to the control seat. "The ship listens to humans." He sat down, hesitating. The console glowed under his hands, scanning his fingerprints. The engines rumbled beneath them, shaking off centuries of dust. Outside, Dominion soldiers surrounded the wreck. One shouted, "Surrender the relic!" Sarah looked at Eli. "Do not stop now." Eli pressed the glowing lever. The freighter roared to life, engines burning bright. The ship lifted from the junkyard floor, fire and debris swirling below. Sarah stood behind him, her eyes glowing gold. "You were meant to find me, Eli. The stars have waited for your kind to return." As the freighter soared into the sky, the Dominion ships gave chase. Blaster fire streaked across the clouds, but the old vessel moved with power no one had seen in centuries. Eli gripped the controls tightly, adrenaline racing through him. What now? Sarah's answer came in a whisper filled with both fear and hope. Now, young one, humanity awakens again. The ship thundered through the upper atmosphere, shaking dust and ash from its wings. Fire streaked behind as Dominion fighters chased from below. Eli gripped the control panel tightly. He had never flown anything bigger than a loading skimmer, yet his hands seemed to move on their own. The ship reacted like it understood him, almost as if it remembered him. Hold her steady. Sarah called from behind, bracing herself against the wall. We must break orbit before they lock missiles. I'm trying. Eli shouted, pulling the control lever. The freighter twisted sharply, the engines roaring like thunder. The Dominion ships fired, but their shots missed, burning holes through empty clouds. Finally, with one last burst, the freighter broke through the clouds into open space. The stars stretched wide before them, cold, endless, and full of danger. Eli slumped in the chair, breathing hard. Sarah walked to the console, her golden eyes glowing faintly. You did well, young one, she said softly. The ship listens to you. I don't get it, Eli said. Why me? I'm not a pilot. I'm just a cargo worker. Sarah smiled sadly. You are more than that. This vessel, this human ship, answers only to those who carry the blood of the old ones. It recognized you the moment you touched the console. Eli looked at the glowing panels. The controls felt warm under his palms, alive somehow. So humans really were here, long ago? Yes, Sarah said quietly. They were the light of the galaxy. Builders, explorers, protectors. The Dominion feared them, for humanity could not be controlled, so they erased your kind from history. Eli frowned. But if humans were wiped out, then how am I? Sarah placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Some humans escaped before the fall. They scattered across the stars, hid among other races, changed their names, their faces. You are one of their descendants. He stared at her in disbelief. That can't be true. Believe or not, she said. Your blood proves it. The ship suddenly spoke again, its voice deep and calm. Power restored. Atlas fragment detected. Welcome back, Terran Command. Eli jumped at the sound. The console glowed brighter, showing a holographic projection of a spinning golden sphere, the same symbol that had shown from Sarah's box. What's that? He asked. Sarah's expression turned solemn. That is the Atlas. It is the last memory core of humanity's golden age, a collection of all their knowledge, their stories, their power. I have protected this fragment for hundreds of years. Eli's eyes widened. Hundreds of years? But how? Sarah interrupted gently, her voice heavy. My kind lives, long lives. I served the High Council of Humanity once. When the war came, they ordered me to hide the Atlas and keep it safe. I failed to protect them, but I never stopped guarding their memory. Eli looked at her with new respect. You were there. When humans fell? She nodded slowly. I watched their cities burn. I watched their fleets fade into the dark. The Dominion called it victory. I called it extinction. A silence filled the cabin. Only the hum of the ship's engines remained. Then the holographic sphere flickered again. A soft human voice spoke through the static. Signal detected. Searching for surviving human command. Confirmed. Command presence active. The ship's systems came alive around them. Lights, scanners, shields. The console projected a star map filled with red and blue dots. Sarah gasped. These are the coordinates of old human outposts. Eli leaned forward. They're still out there? Some may be ruins, Sarah said. But some may still sleep, waiting to awaken. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared. The hologram flashed red. Dominion signature detected, the ship announced. Multiple interceptors approaching. Sarah cursed softly. They tracked our jump. Eli's pulse quickened. What do we do? Sarah turned to him. We can't outrun them yet. The engines are too weak. We need to hide. The ship's AI responded. Nearest hiding zone, abandoned human listening post, Sector Delta 5. Eli nodded quickly. Then set course. The freighter jolted as it entered warp, stars stretching into long streaks. Sarah sat beside him, her face unreadable. You awakened the Atlas, she said quietly. It has chosen you, Eli. That means something. Eli shook his head. I didn't choose anything. I just helped someone who needed it. Sarah smiled faintly. That's what made humanity great. You helped when others turned away. That spirit is what the Dominion fears most. The ship hummed softly as they neared their destination. Through the viewport, the stars parted to reveal a silent, frozen station orbiting a dead moon. "What is this place?" Eli whispered. Sarah stood and placed her hand on the glass. This was once a human listening post. "If the systems still work, we may find the rest of the Atlas here." The ship slowed, engines cooling. For the first time, there was no alarm, no shouting, no pursuit. Only the quiet of forgotten history waiting to wake. Eli stared at the dark station and felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't know what awaited them inside, but something deep inside told him this was only the beginning. Sarah whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. The stars remember, even when the living forget. And somewhere in the shadows of the old station, a faint blue light began to flicker, like an eye slowly opening after centuries of sleep. The old station floated silently above the dead moon, its surface cracked and frozen. Long metal arms stretched out into space like the bones of a forgotten giant. No lights shone from its windows, only darkness. Eli guided the freighter closer, his hands shaking slightly on the controls. The engines purred softly, obeying his every touch. Sarah stood beside him, her gaze locked on the drifting station. "It's still here," she whispered. "I feared the Dominion had destroyed it." The ship's AI spoke in a calm, steady voice. "Docking guidance active. Warning, station power levels critical. Life support offline for 300 years. Eli frowned. 300 years? No one's been here that long? Sarah nodded. This place was sealed after the war. Humans built it to hide knowledge the Dominion must never find. But I think something still sleeps inside. The ship extended its docking clamps with a metallic hiss. The freighter connected to the station's outer airlock, and the doors opened with a deep groan. A cloud of frozen air escaped into space. Eli pulled on a breathing mask. "It's freezing in there," he said, checking the small display on his wrist. "Temperature -30. Sarah didn't seem to mind. "Cold doesn't scare me," she said quietly. "Only forgetting does." They stepped inside. The corridors were covered in frost, the walls lined with old human markings. Faded words in English read, "Listening post Delta 5, Terran command." Eli's heart pounded. "It's true," he whispered. Humans were really here. They walked through the silent hallways, their footsteps echoing. Frozen consoles flickered weakly as Sarah passed, reacting to her presence. The small golden box she carried pulsed with faint light, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. Finally, they reached a sealed chamber at the end of a long corridor. The door had collapsed halfway, but Sarah placed her hand on it. Golden energy spread from her fingers and the heavy metal slowly lifted. Inside was a large control room filled with dead machines. In the center stood a round platform covered in dust. Above it hung a glass sphere, cracked but still glowing faintly blue. Sarah's eyes widened. "The core? It survived. What is it?" Eli asked, stepping closer. "The main memory hub of the Atlas," Sarah said. "This is where humanity stored its last voice before disappearing." She placed the small metal box on the platform. The two devices began to glow together, light flowing from one to the other. The air vibrated softly. Eli stepped back as the lights brightened. "Is that supposed to happen?" "Yes," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "The Atlas is waking." The room filled with a deep hum. The cracked sphere repaired itself, blue light spreading like veins of life across the walls. Holograms flickered into existence, images of human ships, cities, soldiers, and faces long gone. A calm, human voice filled the air. "Command presence detected. Identity confirmed, Terran descendant located. Reconnecting network." Eli felt his skin prickle. "It's talking about me again." Sarah nodded slowly. "It recognizes you, Eli. The Atlas remembers your bloodline." The hologram shifted, showing the fall of human worlds. Their ships burning, their people fleeing into the dark. Sarah closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face. "I was there," she whispered, "when the last council fell. When your ancestors gave me the Atlas and said, 'Hide it until a heart brave enough finds it again.' I thought I had failed them." Eli looked at her, confused. "But you didn't fail. You kept it safe." Sarah smiled weakly. "No, young one. You kept it alive. Without your kindness, it would still be lost in dust." The Atlas spoke again, its tone deeper now. Signal from distant Terran systems detected. Awakening protocols initiated. Estimated human fleet reactivation. Pending confirmation. Eli's eyes widened. Human fleet? You mean there are still ships out there? Sarah nodded. They built automated fleets before the end. If they still exist, the Atlas can awaken them. But once it does, the Dominion will know. As if on cue, the floor trembled slightly. The ship's AI spoke through their comms. Warning, Dominion cruiser approaching. They have found us. Eli ran to the console. They tracked us here. Sarah's eyes glowed with golden fire. Then we finish this now. She touched the Atlas core with both hands. Energy poured from her body into the glowing sphere. Light filled the chamber, blinding and beautiful. The entire station shook as systems long dead came to life. Through the viewports, Eli saw lights flicker across the surface of the moon. Hidden metal doors opening, revealing buried structures and antennas. Signals pulsed outward into deep space, vanishing among the stars. The call has gone out, Sarah whispered. They will hear it. Eli helped her back to her feet. Who will hear it? She looked at him with a tired but proud smile. Your ancestors, Eli, the sleeping ones. Humanity's fleets that never truly died. The station trembled again as explosions shook the hull. Dominion troops were docking outside. Eli turned toward her, his fear replaced with resolve. Then let's make sure we're still here when they arrive. Sarah straightened, her old frame glowing with energy. You have your ancestors' courage, she said. Let's remind the galaxy who humans really are. As the first breach alarm echoed through the station, the blue light of the Atlas pulsed brighter than ever, like the heartbeat of a race that refused to die. The alarms wailed through the frozen station. Red lights blinked across the walls like a heartbeat of danger. Eli and Sarah stood before the glowing Atlas core, its light flickering brighter with every passing second. The voice of the ship's AI crackled in Eli's earpiece. Dominion cruiser in range. Troop transports incoming. Breach detected on Deck 3. Eli turned to Sarah. They're boarding us. Sarah's golden eyes flashed. Then we fight or everything will be lost. She pressed her palms together and the air shimmered around her. The golden box floated into the air, merging fully with the blue atmosphere. The room pulsed with energy, making the entire station hum like a living creature. Eli grabbed a small blaster from a fallen security rack. His hands trembled, but his heart was firm. I'll hold them off, he said. Sarah smiled softly. You remind me of your ancestors. Brave even when afraid. The sound of metal cutting through metal echoed down the hall. Sparks flew as Dominion soldiers sliced open the outer door. Eli ducked behind a console, breathing hard. The door exploded inward, an armored figure stormed in. Black suits, glowing visors, heavy rifles. Seize the relic. One shouted. Eli fired, missing the first shot but hitting the second. The blast threw a soldier backward. The others opened fire, bolts of red light tearing across the room. Sarah raised her hand and a shimmering golden shield appeared, protecting them both. Energy bolts splashed harmlessly against it. Keep shooting, Eli, she said. He did, his fear fading into instinct. The ship's AI suddenly joined the fight. Automated defense systems online. Hidden turrets unfolded from the walls and fired streams of plasma. The Dominion soldiers scrambled for cover, shouting orders that were quickly drowned out by the roar of energy. But then something larger struck the station. A shockwave shook the floors. The Dominion cruiser outside had locked weapons on them. Eli fell to one knee as sparks rained from the ceiling. They're trying to destroy the whole place. Sarah looked toward the core. We're almost out of time. The Atlas must finish its signal. The atmosphere glowed brighter, humming like a heartbeat. A voice came through again, calm and human. Signal complete. Terran coordinates reactivated. Awaiting response. Eli didn't understand, but he hoped it meant help was coming. The Dominion commander stepped into the room, taller, armored in crimson steel. His voice was deep and cruel. You think you can awaken ghosts, alien? He said to Sarah. The humans are dead, and you will join them. Sarah turned slowly, her old posture straightened, her golden glow spreading like fire. You fear them still, she said quietly. Because deep down you know they are not gone. The commander laughed coldly. I fear nothing. He raised his weapon. Sarah's eyes blazed like suns. Then let me remind you. She struck the floor with her hand. The Atlas reacted instantly. Blue and gold light burst outward like a wave, knocking soldiers off their feet. The Dominion commander's armor flickered as his systems shorted out. Eli covered his eyes as the light grew stronger. It spread through the walls, through the entire station, out into space. Outside, the Dominion cruiser fired again, but this time the blasts curved away, deflected by a shimmering golden barrier surrounding the station. "The Atlas is protecting us," Eli said in awe. Sarah's voice was tired but calm. "It is not just protecting, it is calling." Eli ran to the viewport. His breath caught in his throat. Far beyond the dead moon, distant lights were appearing, soft blue glows blinking to life among the stars. "What is that?" he whispered. Sarah smiled faintly. "Those are the beacons. Humanity's ships, sleeping, waiting for this moment." The Dominion soldiers began retreating, shouting into broken comms. The commander stumbled backward, terrified as the station trembled with power. Eli turned to Sarah. "You did it." She shook her head weakly. "No, we did." The Atlas could not wake without human courage. Another explosion rocked the station. "We have to go!" Eli shouted. Sarah nodded, her strength fading. "Back to the ship." "The signal is sent. The rest is up to the stars now." They ran through the damaged corridors as fires burned and alarms screamed. When they reached the docking bay, Eli helped her aboard the freighter. The ship's engines roared to life, shaking off debris. As they pulled away from the dying station, Sarah looked back at it, now glowing like a small sun. "The galaxy will never be the same again," she whispered. Eli stared out the window at the awakening lights across space. For the first time he felt something deep inside, a strange connection like a whisper in his blood. And far away, among the distant stars, massive shapes began to move. Old human warships. Awakening after centuries of silence. The freighter soared through the cold darkness of space, leaving behind the shattered station and the burning Dominion cruiser. For a while there was only silence, broken ships, drifting debris, and the quiet hum of the Atlas echoing through the ship's systems. Eli sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the stars. He could still see them, those faint blue lights in the distance. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one slowly waking from its long sleep. He turned to Sarah. "Are those really human ships?" Sarah nodded weakly. Her once bright glow was fading, her skin pale. "Yes, the Atlas has called them." Those ships were hidden across the galaxy, waiting for the signal that humanity had returned. Eli's heart pounded. "How long have they been out there?" "Since the fall," she said softly. "They were sent to sleep so that one day, if hope rose again, they could awaken. You have done what no one else could. You brought that hope back." The ship's AI spoke, its voice calm but louder now, almost alive. "Detected awakening Terran vessels. Identification, Legacy Fleet. Fleet Command reinitializing." Eli smiled slightly. "Legacy Fleet. Sounds like something from an old story." Sarah gave a faint laugh. It was an old story. Now it becomes truth again. The ship suddenly shook. Warning lights flashed across the console. "Incoming transmission," the AI said. Eli frowned. "From who?" A holographic image appeared above the console, blurry and full of static. It showed a human face, older, scarred, but unmistakably human. "This is Commander Arik of the Valiant Dawn," the man's voice said. "Signal received. Identity confirmed, Terran DNA active. Who speaks for humanity?" Eli froze. He could barely speak. "I don't even know what to say." Sarah smiled softly and touched his shoulder. "Say the truth." Eli took a deep breath. "My name's Eli. I found the Atlas and I think it found me." The commander's expression changed, part shock, part relief. "Then humanity truly endures. Stand by, young one. The fleet is mobilizing." The hologram vanished, leaving only silence again. Sarah exhaled slowly, her body trembling. "It has begun," she whispered. Outside the viewport, the stars shifted as the first of the ancient ships came into full view. Massive vessels covered in thick armor, their hulls marked with the faded flag of Earth. Engines glowed bright blue, cutting through the darkness like fire. Eli stood, his mouth open in awe. "They're beautiful." "They are home," Sarah said quietly. "Built by hands that refuse to give up. Ships meant to protect all free worlds." Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped rapidly. The Dominion fleet was regrouping. 3 cruisers dropped out of warp behind them, weapons charging. "They won't stop," Eli said. "They'll keep coming." "Then let them," Sarah whispered. "Today they learn what humans truly are." The freighter's comm crackled again. "This is Fleet Command," the deep voice of Commander Arik boomed. "All units, defensive formation. Protect the signal carrier." Hundreds of ships moved as one, sleek fighters, heavy cruisers, old dreadnoughts that had not seen battle in centuries. The Dominion ships opened fire, red beams cutting through the void, but the human fleet's reply came like thunder. Blue plasma arcs streaked through space, tearing apart the first Dominion cruiser. The second tried to flee, engines burning bright, but a human destroyer caught it in a tractor field and shattered it with one clean shot. Eli watched in awe as the dark sky filled with light and fury. "They're winning." "Yes," Sarah said, voice soft and proud, "because humans never forgot how to fight for what matters." The freighter shook again as debris hit its hull. Sarah stumbled, catching herself on the console. Her glow dimmed further. "Sarah," Eli shouted, rushing to her side. "You're hurt." She smiled weakly. "The Atlas took much from me. My time is ending." "No," Eli said firmly. "You'll make it." She touched his cheek gently. "Listen to me, Eli. You are the bridge between the past and the future. Protect the Atlas, lead them. Humanity will need you." He shook his head, eyes wet. "I'm just one person." "That's how it always starts," she said, her voice fading. "One person who decides to care." The ship's AI spoke softly, almost like a whisper. "Dominion fleet destroyed. Terran Legacy fleet stands ready for orders." Eli looked out the viewport again. Hundreds of human ships surrounded them now, shining like stars reborn. Sarah leaned back in her seat, eyes closing, a peaceful smile on her face. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "The stars remember." Eli held her hand until her breathing slowed. Outside, the Legacy fleet aligned into formation, silent, powerful, alive once more. The voice of Commander Arik came through again. "Eli, welcome home." And as the stars glowed brighter, the young human realized the truth. Humanity had never truly vanished. They had simply been waiting for someone to remember who they were. The battlefield burned across the stars. Wrecked Dominion ships drifted lifeless in the void, their glowing engines fading one by one. The silence that followed was heavy, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Eli sat in the command seat of the freighter, his hands resting on the controls. Outside the viewport, hundreds of human warships hovered quietly, their blue lights flickering like distant suns. The Legacy fleet, awakened after centuries, now waited for his voice. He still couldn't believe it. Hours ago, he was just a boy hauling cargo. Now the last hope of humanity sat in his hands. Sarah lay quietly in the medical pod beside him, her frail form surrounded by golden light. Her breathing was shallow, but peaceful. The ship's AI spoke gently. "Commander Eli, the Dominion forces are retreating. However, multiple enemy fleets are gathering in nearby sectors. They will return." Eli clenched his fists. "Then we'll be ready." He looked at Sarah. "She believed in me. I won't let her down." The AI replied softly. She believed in humanity. Suddenly, the main communication console lit up. Commander Arik's face appeared once more, his expression serious but proud. "Eli," he said, "the fleet awaits your orders. The Dominion still controls half the systems in this sector. But if we strike now, the galaxy will know. Humans have returned." Eli hesitated. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't even a soldier. But when he looked out at those massive ships, the same ships built by the hands of his ancestors, something deep within him stirred. He thought of Sarah, the woman everyone ignored. He thought of her quiet courage, her endless faith that humanity would rise again. He nodded slowly. "Then let's finish what she started." Commander Arik smiled faintly. "Understood, Commander. We fight for Earth." Moments later, the Legacy fleet moved as one. Engines ignited, bright as suns. The Dominion's reinforcements emerged from warp space. Black cruisers, sleek destroyers, and a colossal flagship that dwarfed everything else. Eli stood, his heart pounding. "Broadcast this to all channels," he told the AI. "Let them hear us." A small beep echoed. "Transmission open." Eli took a breath. His voice was calm, steady. "This is Eli, descendant of Earth. For centuries you called us myths. You said humanity was gone. But we were never gone. We were waiting. Waiting for the moment to stand again." Across the galaxy, his voice reached out through the static. Civilizations that had forgotten the name human paused to listen. The Dominion commander's face appeared on another screen. Cold, angry, and afraid. "You think your ghost can stand against the Dominion?" The alien sneered. Eli met his gaze. "They're not ghosts. They're legends. And legends never die." At his signal, the Legacy fleet opened fire. Thousands of blue plasma bolts streaked through space, colliding with the Dominion ships. The void became a storm of light. Fighters weaved between explosions. Human cruisers tore through enemy lines, and the freighter's old cannons fired beside them. Eli shouted commands with instinct he didn't know he had. "Form shields. Protect the flagships. Focus fire on the main carrier." The ship's AI responded instantly, coordinating the fleet's movements like a living mind. The Dominion flagship tried to retreat, but its engines failed under the rain of fire. One final blast from a human dreadnought split it in two. The explosion lit the darkness brighter than any sun. When the light faded, only human ships remained. The battlefield fell silent. Eli stood there staring at the endless stars. The AI broke the quiet. Dominion fleet destroyed. Galactic transmissions indicate mass panic. Humanity's return has been confirmed. He sat down slowly, his body shaking from exhaustion and disbelief. "It's over." "Not over," Sarah's weak voice whispered. Eli turned sharply. The golden light around her was dim but still there. She smiled faintly, eyes half open. "It's only the beginning. The galaxy remembers now." He knelt beside her. "Rest now, Sarah, you did it." Her fingers brushed against his cheek. "We did it," she whispered. "You proved what I always believed, that even in darkness a human heart can light the stars." Her glow faded softly, until only the faint warmth of her hand remained. Eli bowed his head. The ship's AI spoke gently. Vital signs ceased. "Sarah, guardian matriarch of humanity. Status complete." Eli stood and turned back toward the viewport. The fleet waited outside, silent and strong. Commander Arick's voice came through again.
"Eli, what are your orders?"
Eli took a long breath, his voice calm but full of strength. "Tell the galaxy," he said slowly, "that humanity has returned, not to rule, but to remember who we are, to protect, to rebuild, to make the stars shine again." Across every screen in every corner of space, the message echoed, "Humanity lives." And as the legacy fleet moved through the stars, their engines glowing blue like burning hope, Eli looked out into the endless dark and smiled, because in that moment, the myth of humanity was no longer just a story. It was the truth, and the galaxy would never forget it again.